1-2, swinging a drive toward right center. Back goes Robert, back near the stands. That ball is gone. A game-winning home run for Chris Morel. Can you believe it? Listen to this crowd.
Welcome back to the Really Cubs podcast. I'm your little brother Zach, and that's my big brother John. We're your baseball-watching brothers who love everything about the Chicago Cubs baseball club. Oh, that's a mouthful. If you enjoy the Cubs baseball team, hit the subscribe button, turn on the notifications, and give us a holler every week as we dive into the most incredibly patient and most unboring team in all Major League Baseball.
We'd like to thank all of our subscribers for tuning in and checking us out every week. Joining us today is the incomparable and legendary Chicago Cubs photographer, Rich Biesterfeld, to talk Cubs baseball and a little bit of background on himself. So with that, we'll go ahead and start our spotlight interview here with, again, Rich Biesterfeld. And the first question that we have for you, Rich, is, first of all, where can we find you? Where are you at as far as social media?
Sure. I'm on both X/Twitter and Instagram. My handle is listed there on the screen, but it's BIEST22. But also do some collaboration with my friends at The Setup Man, as well as at Northside Bound.
And hey, Rich, so where are you originally from? And I guess why did you move to Arizona?
Sure. Originally, I grew up in a small town in Illinois. Grew up about 40 miles south of the city of Chicago. Got hooked on the Cubs, like so many people, with all the games being on WGN at that time. But from there, like I said, I grew up there, like I said, Kankakee area, for people familiar with Illinois. But then I lived in central Illinois for about 30 years for my job. And in 2016, I had the opportunity to transfer with my job out to Arizona. But before that, I had been coming out to Arizona for probably 15 to 20 years, spending a week to 10 days every spring coming out for spring training. And I kind of grew to love the area. And when I had the opportunity to transfer with work, it seemed like a no-brainer. Yeah. So moved out here and been here since then.
How did you first get into photography? Did you go to college or?
I was an IT major.
Oh, okay.
I worked at IT for 30 years. So it's kind of like I had the tech side of the brain. And now it's kind of shifted over to use the arts kind of side. But so yeah, no formal training, but probably shortly after college. I think one time I went home, my parents had gotten a camera somehow and they weren't really interested in using it. So they said, yeah, if you want it, go ahead. And from there, I just started taking pictures. Became kind of like the family photographer for, Christmas or other events. I was the one who's usually taking pictures, going on vacation, started doing, more some of the scenery pictures, or a couple times went with a group of my family, like to Disney World. And you had some kind of cool views there with things, and started reading up on, okay, how do you make photos interesting and things like that. So, but then over time, then it's like, okay, started taking the camera more to, like, if I went to ball games and things, kind of combining two different interests, but it was a way to really meld those together.
Cool.
Awesome. Any tips for active photographers looking to get into sports media?
Mm-hmm. My biggest one is shoot, and shoot some more. That's the best way to learn. And the beauty of, like, when I started, it was still all the old film, so you had a roll of 24 or 36 and you really didn't know what you're getting. Now with digital, okay, I can look at the back of my camera right away. And I was doing that. I was at the game today and I was doing that. It's like, no, that didn't come out the way I wanted it to. Or it's like, I shot 3, rapid fire. Okay, that's the only one I want. Get rid of these others. But that's, to me, and that was some advice one of my friends gave me early on. It's just, the more you shoot, the better you get. Try different things, try different angles, try getting low and shooting up, try shooting straight on. Everybody kind of needs to discover what their own style is. And I've talked about this before with friends who are fellow photographers, and we might be standing shoulder to shoulder, but our photos won't look the same because we maybe highlight different things or take a different angle, or maybe one person's more centered, one person has it more left based because they want to see like the path of the ball from something. So it's just try things. It's like I say, I think I said it, but the beauty of digital, it's you can just wipe it out and you're really not losing anything.
Awesome. Rich, just having a chance to talk with you with Zach and that morning when we were in Arizona, it was great to get to know you and just to see how just expansive your Cubs encyclopedia is of all these players. You get real close with some of them, and I was just curious, what is your favorite part of your job as a Cubs photographer?
I think you kind of nailed it there. The relationships that I've had the opportunity to build. Um, I've gotten to know a lot of the players. I've gotten to know a lot of their families. Just like over the last week, I met Brooks Capel, who was one of the pitchers drafted last year. I got to meet his mom and dad and sister, just chat a little bit, and um, Luke Little's mom and dad were out there recently. I've known Luke and his family since 2020 when he was drafted, and I think it drives the point home that while you're watching a game, you kind of think about, oh, here's this baseball player. And that's obviously accurate, true, but there's a person who has a life outside of that, who has parents, siblings, significant others. And I think it just, to me, it kind of increases my rooting interest a lot of times. Sometimes makes it hard too, because I've known a lot of guys who've gotten, traded or released.
Right.
You want to see everybody do well, and obviously not everybody's going to make the big leagues, but want to see them get as far as they can, and you really appreciate that success. And when you see, I've had the opportunity, like Luke's a great example, where I saw him from right after he was drafted, being in camp and getting to see him make his big league debut and being in the big leagues now. That's a lot of fun. Knowing guys from all along that way versus, when somebody gets picked up in a trade, that's great too. But a lot of times I don't really know them that well, so the rooting interest is a little different for me.
Speaking of Luke Little, I mean, that was rough when he got injured, and
Mhm.
because Zach and I are huge Luke Little fans, and
Uh,
as you know, Zach gave him one of those like fist pumps, like, "Come on, let's go, let's see that sweeper," he said, and Luke Little hit him back with another, fist, like, "Yeah, I got this." So that was really emotional, but yeah, that's interesting, very interesting. It's funny. Luke Little has that kind of oxymoron name, right? Like Paul.
Yeah, I was gonna say that. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm taking all the bits here.
but it's like, I was trying to think where. There was I had an opportunity to go to an event a couple weeks ago, where a number of players were kind of talking about how their personal faith beliefs intersected with their playing lives, and it included like Ben Brown from the Cubs, Dansby Swanson, Jason Adam, and Mike Schilt. And one of the things I really enjoyed was, talking about how a lot of these guys are just really good guys, nice guys, off the field. But man, when they get between the lines, they are extreme competitors and they want to win. And it's like it was one of the best explanations I've heard, because sometimes you do wonder about that when you get to see like an interview or get to know a player, you know, but that competitive nature, in order to get to those levels, they've really got to be able to harness that and drive through it. And but then also being able to turn it off when they leave between the lines.
Yeah, good point.
Right. So, what is the toughest part of your job?
Mhm. Um, I think sometimes, like in big league camp, it's just trying to get access, trying to get where I would like to be in order to get shots. Um, yeah, I've been able to be credentialed through minor league baseball for the last couple of years. So, and then like last year, I had the pleasure of hitting all four of the Cubs minor league affiliates. But I know I've gotten to know like their announcers, a lot of their media connections, and I collaborate with a lot of those, especially like Myrtle Beach and South Bend, pretty significantly. where they know they can reach out to me if they need photos of players. If I have something, I willingly share that. But then if I go visit, they'll set me up with media credentials for their site and, kind of give me pretty good free reign. South Bend a couple years ago, actually, I think each of the last 2 years, I've gone up on the roof and shot some photos from the roof, getting a nice wide angle view. I got a really cool shot of Matt Shaw playing for South Bend, looking down on him from the roof with a cool swing. So, being able to do that, stuff like that. I think, but I kind of touched on it earlier. I think the other hard part though is when you see people that you kind of built some relationships with, and then who, like I say, whether they're traded, released, retire. Bryce Wyndham is one of my guys that I think of. Bryce was one of my favorite players, just an all-around really good guy, and made the decision last year, I think it was like in August, to retire.
Wow.
He'd gotten married, wanted to be able to spend more time with his family. And so it was hard not seeing him play. It's been hard this spring not seeing him around Cubs camp, but you want the best for them too. And if that's the best call for them, you're happy for them too.
Right.
Yeah. I know you mentioned Luke Little. You've gotten a chance to know his family. Do you have a favorite player that you've made acquaintances with or kind of friends with?
I'd probably go with Ethan Roberts.
Okay.
Another bullpen guy. Ethan's another one I've known probably, 3 or 4 years from early on when he was in the system. I think I had shot some photos of him and sent those to him, and just built a good relationship where we talk baseball, we talk other things. I've gone to like baseball card shows with him, hooking up with things there. So kind of seeing him with his family, just again, you get to see that other side of the player. And then then you see him on the diamond. It's like, wow, that's a really big competitor. That doesn't seem like, I know it's the same guy, but it doesn't seem like the same guy that I know and talk to, about other stuff.
So do you have, I guess, who is your favorite Cubs player? And if it's hard for you to name a favorite player, what about a favorite Cubs manager?
Gosh, I would say I was kind of trying to think about this, and it's like it's hard to come down to one. I think as a kid, Dill Buckner was one of my favorites, and then it was a lot of fun. I got to meet Fergie Jenkins. Used to have his Fergie and Friends little area set up at spring training games where he'd bring a lot of his peers and stuff, and they would sign autographs for charity. And back in there, I got to meet Bill Buckner the one time, and it was, that was a lot of fun. But in the more contemporaries, I was a big Ryan Sandberg fan, Kerry Wood. I think I kind of gravitate a lot of times towards guys who are good players, but it doesn't have to be the best player on the team. But I like the high character guys too, that I can, that I see that way.
Yeah, that's great. Who should we be on the lookout for in 2025 and beyond in the minor league system? Or more or less, who are we not talking enough about? We know about Matt Shaw, obviously. And
Right. I am a big Matt Shaw fan. Good guy, and he
got a
work
hit
ethic
today.
is off the charts. Yeah, he made a nice play at third base early on in the game as well.
Yeah.
I think one of the guys who's like a top 10, I think he's top 10. I haven't had a chance to look fully at some of the reports that came out today, but I know there was a new top 30 list. But I think Jaxon Wiggins is a guy to keep an eye on. He's a little bit more well known right now, but he's coming back. I think last year was his first full year after Tommy John, but I think Jaxon is somebody who's going to be really good. Cole Mathis, he was a second round pick from last year. Another coming back from Tommy John, as he pitched somewhat in college, but I believe he's just going to be a position player. I've seen him taking some BP. I've seen him start taking some ground balls. So I haven't heard officially a timetable, but I would expect him to be a little bit later start. Probably not ready for opening day in the minor leagues, but hopefully playing somewhat in the complex league, and then moving up to a full season affiliate. What else was there? A couple other guys I had jotted down. Angel Cepeda. Angel's an infielder. He played in the complex guy from last year, probably at Myrtle Beach. just very, very smooth on defense, good bat. It was interesting. By the end of last year, it felt like he was just kind of getting worn down, I think, from the longer season where he kind of slumped towards the end, but played very well throughout the complex league. And they were blessed with a lot of really good, got a good middle infielders in the complex league last year. And then my other one, this kind of I only saw him pitch like a couple times, but Christian Gordon, who was a draft pick last year, just the stuff looked good. It looked to be he's a college pitcher, so it looked to be a little bit more polished. So kind of anxious to see what he might be able to do.
Right.
Coming up.
I was going to talk about just a second here, Jaxon Wiggins.
Mhm.
So, I mean, this guy is coming off an injury, from when he was drafted. Similar, I guess, I wouldn't say a project, but a similar circumstances, Cade Horton, right?
Mhm. Right.
So I'm curious to see what was it with Jaxon Wiggins. I know he has a good fastball. I can't remember
Mhm.
if he throws a sweeper, or if he's like a changeup type guy.
I think it's more the sweeper, but I'm not positive on that. I think part of it, again, that college pitcher pitched at a major program. He's an Arkansas guy.
Yeah.
One thing I've learned over the last couple of years is the Arkansas baseball family are deeply connected. I think there's like about at least 4 or 5 guys, Casey Opitz, Jackson, Christian Franklin, um, Connor Noland. I'm sure I'm forgetting some guys, but that all came out of the Arkansas program. And with my photos and stuff, a lot of their families and friends have kind of found me, and as I've talked to some of them, it's just like they are big baseball fans, and they support their former Razorbacks out there. But
Yeah.
I think with Jackson's just really good stuff. It just watching him on the mound, the composure. I've heard a lot of people talk about him as a potential closer, and I can kind of see that because I think the stuff could play, and I think he's got the mental state to be able to do it.
Yeah. I'm excited for him too. I think
Mhm.
I like what you said about him. I think he's underrated, and people are going to
Mhm.
really find out that he's got really talent. He's really talented guy, big league stuff for sure.
Yeah, but like when I've watched it pitch, what I felt like I've seen is typical of many pitchers coming back from Tommy John, where some nights they are lights out, and then some nights they're struggling to find the plate. And I saw that he made like 2 or 3 starts out here in the complex league before moving up to Myrtle Beach and then South Bend. But even like the one night, he was super locked in the first inning he pitched, and I think he had at least 2, if not 3 strikeouts. Next inning, he was struggling to find the plate. So not that unusual though for guys coming back from Tommy John.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was hearing. Is just with Wiggins is that there's just a little bit of inconsistencies,
Mhm.
and so but yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see if he was a closer for us. That'd be just insane. And
Yeah.
so that concludes our spotlight interview. We're going to talk more about a few different topics here. We have Matt Shaw. This is kind of like the hot topic right now is
Mhm.
should Matt Shaw play in the Tokyo series versus the LA Dodgers? What do you think about that, Rich?
Um, I think it's after just playing in 2 games so far. I think it's still a little early to make that call, but I've heard some people say, "Well, he needs a minimum of X number of at bats." I can understand the rationale, but I think it's going to be closer to a game time call, or whenever I'm not sure the exact date when they travel to Japan, but I think if he's looking good, I think with Matt, he played also in the USA Premier Tournament, into November last year.
Mhm.
Um, my gut feeling says he's going to be ready. Like I said, that's gut feeling more than anything else, but just um, the kid's the equivalent of a gym rat is the best way for me to describe it. Where just he loves the game. He's a heads down player, and he always wants to get better. Just such a hard worker that I just can't bet against him in any way.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
I go for it, Zach.
No, I mean I've heard that. I've also heard Matt Shaw talk on with Kyle on the Setup
Mm-hmm.
Man. That was a very insightful interview. The guy does not have
Mm-hmm.
social media in this day and
Mm-hmm.
age, and he's younger than me, and I'm like, I'm 30, but he's, how old is Shaw? He's
Mm-hmm.
like 23, 20 in that range,
Yes.
24,
Mm-hmm.
and he's not doesn't have social media. Um, and he's just very devoted to the game, and so that's really
Mm-hmm.
awesome to see that he's going to get
Mm-hmm.
all the he's going to get all the reps in. That's what
Right.
I'm saying at third,
Yep.
and if need be, I'm sure he could get a little bit more reps in at second if he had. Seems like the guy
Mm-hmm.
to sacrifice to better his game.
Would agree.
Yeah, I'm curious. I think if he's, if he didn't play maybe the day before, just to kind of
Mm-hmm.
be a little cautionary,
Mm-hmm.
with the oblique. I mean, at least one game, and then we'll talk a little bit about Gage Workman
Mm-hmm.
if he can fill in for the second game. I think that'd be ideal.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of our next topic here. If not, who will? So if not Matt Shaw, who will get infield reps besides Workman at second base? We'll start with Zach. Zach, what do you think?
Uh, so I know there's a lot of 40-man discussions. I'm sure the Cubs will entertain at least putting Shaw on the. I'm sure Shaw will probably be on something like the taxi squad if they're going to use a taxi squad for Tokyo. And then if he's got to get added to the 40-man roster, so you're going to have to dump
Right.
someone. And the 40 is pretty tight this year, especially with this kind of caliber of team. So I think
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be up in their decision making. But right now, um, I think I think John Birdie would probably start, is my intuition. But I feel like Vidal Brujan will get uh, a spot at this point. Because since he can play all over, I think I've even seen him play center field in spring so far as well as shortstop. Um, I don't know if he's played third. I played a lot of third, at least this spring. But I know Brujan, his big deal with the Marlins was that he could play all over the diamond. So I'm guessing they want to use him as like a pseudo fifth outfielder. Along with that speed, I think they're hoping they can unlock a little bit of league average OPS out of him. If he could give us a 650 OPS, I mean, I think he would essentially be a nice Swiss Army knife, speedy guy off the bench. So I'm going with a Brujan here in terms of Birdie starting, but then mixing in Brujan really all over the diamond.
Mm-hmm.
All right, there's also some talk on Cubs Twitter about Keegan Thompson. He struggled recently. Some people were clamoring for David Robertson for a signing of his caliber. He's still out there. Recently, we learned that Yency Almonte was signed to a minor league deal. Rich, what do you think about Yency Almonte or even somebody like David Robertson still joining the squad?
Yeah, I like the Almonte signing because I thought he looked good, in his past years when he was with the Cubs. Um, I'm not against signing anybody. It's just I think their bullpen is already crowded,
Yeah.
and you've got a limited number of guys who have options left. I think that gets real tricky. With I don't have the full list of everybody in front of me, but you've got a number of guys who have to go through waivers or whatever. Like I think like Keegan's out of options. I think Tyson Miller's out of options. Tyson Miller's another one. Tyson Miller was great last year. Tyson has struggled pretty seriously this spring. It's spring. It's early. A veteran. You don't worry about that as much, but Tyson did get DFA'd last year by the Mariners. Keegan's been, Keegan like 2 or 3 years ago was lights out. The last year or two, Keegan hasn't been as strong. And again, no disrespect to either gentleman. Like both guys, but I think there's gonna be some tough decisions made, and I'm not sure. Is Robertson would if bringing in David Robertson is there somebody else? Is he better than what they already have? Guys get paid a lot of money to make that decision better than I could at this point. So I'm not opposed, but it's like I just don't know if that makes sense with when you've already got a really crowded bullpen. It feels like without guys with options already.
Yeah, I agree. Zach, what do you think? I mean, the lefty thing for me personally, just real quick, I was just going to say I would have liked them to add in a lefty, more lefties to this bullpen, more impact lefties. There's Brooks Raley out there, but Zach, what do you think about any other possible bullpen moves, or do you think they're pretty much set? It's like you said, it's Rich. It's a tough decision.
I think they may end up saving some of their luxury tax payroll space for mid-season. I think we say that all the time as Cub fans. We sort of give in to what the ownership is saying. We're like, okay, we sort of bargain, or the stages of grief. We're there, or acceptance maybe. I think that we're accepting possibly that they can't sign Robertson, but the bullpen actually looks solid. I mean, you sign Robertson and you're really kicking guys out that were in the 2s and 3s in ERA last year and FIP. That's a fun statistic.
Yeah.
So and I would say if the Cubs they've been making trades. Eli Morgan, Ryan Brasier was like a DFA type trade for money. Ryan Presley, and then Porter Hodge's emergence last year. It wasn't a trade, but you can almost lock him into a late inning spot, at least maybe not lock him in, but hopefully get some projection out of there. In another year, Robertson would make a lot of sense. He is getting older, but his numbers are really good. So, I mean, I think someone will sign him. I'm just not sure it'll be the Cubs here, although it is March 4th. I'm a little shocked he hasn't gotten signed yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't see us getting after him, but I think we're in a good spot right now at the bullpen.
Yeah.
You had mentioned a lefty. One other name I'd throw out there, Riley Martin. Riley got sent down, but Riley's looked really good in the second half last year, and I think he looked pretty good in spring training. So he's one of those guys that I would not be surprised to see get a chance to make his major league debut this season. So hoping for it.
Oh yeah. There's a few lefties there. You've got, aside from Thielbar, who had a bad year last year, but has had some good years with the Twins. Obviously, Luke Little, we've talked about. We love him. Awesome, deception, delivery. He's got Brandon Hughes, was very good in 2023. Love his stuff. And then, as you mentioned, Riley Martin. So it's kind of encouraging to talk these through out loud to say, hey, we've got a few lefty options. They'll have to make 40-man roster decision stats in these guys, but assuming they don't have, depending on what kind of deal Brandon Hughes signed, how long he's going to be in the system. If he has an opt-out, that would be awesome to hold on to him as long as we can.
Right.
These guys are kind of exciting. So we are closing out here. We're almost at the end of our podcast, but just one last segment before we take off. I know we're excited to talk about the bench. We've got the Tokyo series here in 2 weeks, which is crazy to say. It's coming really fast, and it's going to be very difficult for me to watch. I don't get up early. Probably catch some of it before work. But as we start to get a little bit more focused on these roster discussions, because Tokyo is so fast, leave this as an open-ended question, question for anyone here. How are we feeling about sort of the last bullpen spot, or the last 2 bullpen spots? I know we talked about Tyson Miller. If he doesn't recover, obviously he would have to be DFA'd potentially. We have guys like Eli Morgan who have options. I think Nate Pearson has an option. And then we've got Ben Brown. Any predictions for the last couple bullpen spots? What is going to happen?
Great question. I'm not sure. One thing I will say though, I think Iowa's going to have a heck of a rotation in bullpen, because I think there's going to be some guys who could be in Chicago that very well may be in Iowa because they've got options. Guys we haven't even touched on guys like Jordan Wicks.
Yeah.
George's another one of those guys that I really like. Just I love the bulldog mentality in him, and it's if was talking to somebody who knows him well, who mentioned the other day that if he doesn't make the major leagues roster to begin the season, his plan is at least to make it a very difficult decision for them to have to send him down.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I think there's lots of guys like that who are going to be, or I should say, probably more than one guy in Iowa that really could be on a major league roster, and I think that also may happen with some other guys who don't have options that are probably going to go and be on a bullpen, maybe for another team because of that.
Yeah. John, any predictions on who you like to see get some of those last couple spots?
I like Brown.
Me
I like
too.
Ben Brown. Yeah.
Me too.
Brothers. I really love Ben Brown. Pearson's all right. He has some heat. I like to see what Eli Morgan has. Like you said, I mean, Rich, Tyson Miller has struggled. So I mean, Ben Brown in the closer role, I think a lot of people were looking for that last year. We were trying to figure out some stability to that back into the bullpen.
Right.
So Ben Brown, for me personally, I would love to see that. And then he could spot start every now and then, but I'd really love to see him in that bullpen role. So
I mean
throwing some nasty Uncle Charlie's,
the death ball,
ball.
So
there will be some decisions made solely because of the flexibility to option guys down. You're going to have Wicks, Horton, not Birdsell to start the season, but eventually Birdsell, Connor Noland, Chris Flexen, and did I mention Wicks to start with? I did mention Wicks. Yeah. Ben Brown would be if they want to stretch him out, that's a ridiculous rotation. Half those guys should be in the majors, today, barring injuries for a few of those guys. So it's going to be an exciting year, guys. I mean, it's weird that spring we're 2 weeks in and yet we're so close to Tokyo. I know they're going to do like this little gap in between travel and then do some exhibition games over there. But I think we're pretty much out of time here, and but super excited for the season to start. It's coming pretty fast.
Yeah, thanks to Rich, our guest, Rich Biesterfeld. Excuse me. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Brotherly Cubs podcast. Thanks again to our viewers. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notifications, join the conversation with us on Twitter at Brotherly Cubs or Spotify and Apple Podcasts. I'm your big brother, John. That's my little brother, Zach. And for Rich Biesterfeld, we will see you next week.
Adios.
Peace.
Listen to this crowd.